New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. Please help us say thank you to all of our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Center for Spiritual Living United Life, Sunshine Cathedral, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Universal Joy Center, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Home Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. On behalf of New Thought Media Network, thank you, and please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, come be you. Come expand your spiritual journey. Join us for Just the Talk, Sundays, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Experience Unity Kitchener and Ottawa. Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Unity of Garden Park, New Thought Philadelphia, the Sunshine Cathedral, Unity of Savannah, and the Om Center for Spiritual Living. Come unleash your spiritual potential with New Thought Media Network.
Hey everybody, Tracy Brown here. I am so delighted that you have joined me today. It is the first Tuesday in February, which means it is the first Tuesday in Black History Month. It is the first Tuesday in the season for peace and nonviolence. I decided to do something a little bit different History Month this year on Inclusive Church. So what is Inclusive Church? It is a series where we come together every Tuesday at noon Mountain Time to be reminded or to make a recommitment to being leaders in spiritual communities where oneness does not require sameness, where we understand that unity and harmony and love are demonstrated in our spiritual communities with all kinds of people, that we don't have to behave the same, we don't have to come from the same identity groups, we can be experiencing different things culturally in our human experience, and we can learn and practice spiritual principle and spiritual laws together. So it is Black History Month, and I've been playing a lot with this idea that ancient wisdom like wisdom from thousands and thousands of years ago. Taught the same things that we teach in New Thought today, right? I mean, this is not like any woo, like, amazing aha, but I think we get so caught up in what we're teaching right now and what's been happening in the last 100 years or 150 years that we forget we did not invent anything new. If you are familiar with Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, of religious science, and the author of the book Science of Mind, then you may have come across the several different places where he basically said religious science is not creating something new. It is the synthesis of the spiritual principles that have been taught through all of human experience, through all of humanity, through all time. And but really often we don't go back more than a couple hundred years. So I've been fascinated off and on for the last year with going back not 100 or 200 years, but not even 2,000 years, but even before that. And so since it's Black History Month, I decided to go select 4 of many different cultures that taught a lot of the same things that we teach in New Thought today, and just not even really do a comparison, but have a reminder that ancient African culture and ancient African spiritual guidance in many ways was similar to the spiritual guidance that we use today. And if you're live and you want to drop into the comment section, if you're, depending on which platform you're on, or put in chat, hello, like Wayne has done, saying howdy to everybody today. Please feel free to do that. And as we go through the time together over the next 30 to 35 minutes, if you have a comment, you have an observation, if you have a question, please feel free to put that in the chat or the comments as well. So let's start with this idea for Black History Month, right? I want to look at 4 ancient African cultures that align with what they taught, aligns with New Thought philosophy that we teach and practice today. And there are actually many, many more examples, but the 4 that I have selected to focus on is Kemet, which is, if you're not familiar with the term Kemet, then think of ancient Egyptian culture and philosophy. We'll look at Yoruban culture, which roughly in today's geography would be Central Africa, Nigeria, and on that part of the globe. The 3rd week, I'm going to dive a little bit into Akan culture and philosophy, and again, roughly, if you look at today's geography and naming, that would be Central to West Africa, so Ghana and that part of Africa. And then in the last week, we'll look at the concept and the principles of Ubuntu, which is more in the southern part of Africa. And so today we're going to focus on Kemet and Egypt. And there are some basic things that if you've not studied Kemet, you wouldn't know. So again, ancient Egypt, one of the core teachings was Mat, M-A-T, apostrophe A-T. And what Ma'at is it's about cosmic order. It's about balance of all of life. It teaches about the truth, the spiritual truth, not our humanly decided preferences, and the right relationship to truth. So, not like the Ten Commandments tell you to do A, B, C, and D, but what is the relationship of human beings to the creator of all of life? So now we're going back, wow, 3000 BCE, right? We're going back basically 5,000 years ago to look at some of this foundational information. So in Kemet, the divine order might have been expressed as this: reality operates according to intelligible, consistent principles. It's what in New Thought today we would say there is spiritual law. And so in Kemet and in understanding Ma'at, there was a big focus on this divine order, intelligible, it's consistent, it operates the same way for all of humanity. It's impersonal, right? That there is a conscious alignment between right thought and right action. And when you are using both, when your thoughts and your actions are in alignment with spiritual truth, then harmony is what is experienced. So if either your actions or your thoughts are out of alignment with divine truth, right? You might be out of harmony, but you could restore harmony by getting in alignment. Now, that matches what we think about too as first cause. The inner order produces outer order. Now, I laugh when I read this and thinking about Kemet because, in 20th century language, as we became a society really dependent upon technology, the phrase garbage in, garbage out became really popular. And when we are thinking and talking from a spiritual perspective, even back in ancient Egyptian teaching, for the way our lives unfold, it was very clear you must have inner order because that is what produces outer order. Whatever your inner experience is going to be reflected or demonstrated in outer appearances, decisions, actions, circumstances, environment, conditions. And then one other thing that was very foundational in understanding and maintaining Ma'at was that the individual consciously participates in actually leading or in actuality of co-creating Ma'at in form. So when I put all of those little segments together, and within Science of Mind, I think of the parallel that there is a power for good in the universe and we can use it. One, right? I'm acknowledging that there is a power, there is order in the universe. There is a design of right action and right thinking and how they work together, right? And I can use it. I must consciously understand it, choose it, and use it. And so when I look back at ancient African traditions and ancient African philosophy and realize 5,000 years ago, the teaching of Ma'at as a law, as a way that life it has been created and unfolds, it just kind of blows my mind that we teach it with different words today, but we're actually teaching the same idea. We're teaching about living in alignment with the law of life. So just take that in for a minute, right? Ancient Kemet taught Ma'at, divine order. Science of mind and new thought in general teaches there is a spiritual law. Different language, same truth. So harmony is not accidental, it's cultivated, right? That it's not accidental. The design for harmony already exists, but we must choose to cultivate it by the things we think over and over and again and the actions we take. And if we're out of harmony, that inner order can be restored by getting back in alignment. And when inner order is restored, the outer expression of life follows. It starts within. How many of you have heard the phrase, thoughts are things, right? That we think it first and then it becomes a thing. We teach that in New Thought in the 21st century. But the idea of that was also taught 5,000 years ago. The idea that you do not beg the universe. The universe is doing what the universe does. What we do is we align with the universal truth, the universal standard, the universal principle of Ma'at, or the universal principle of spiritual law in action. Spiritual practice requires is not the word I want. Spiritual practice is our conscious participation in divine order. It's not random. We are consciously choosing to get in alignment and participate in either receiving or in influencing or in using divine order, getting in alignment with divine order. Because the law is neutral. It is impersonal. It's not going to work differently for different people. It's the same always. It's our consciousness that decides whether to be in alignment or not. And so one of the things that that this makes me think of is that it's up to me to choose alignment with universal truth. So this show is the inclusive church. Why am I talking about this? Right? It may sound to you like it is just a generic New Thought lesson. And it is that, but the reason that I'm talking about it within the inclusive church show is because we are committed to being inclusive in our spiritual environment, in our spiritual community. And in order to do that, we need to understand not only what we are teaching, but how to translate it into language that can reach many different people. We also want to talk about it from the perspective of being an inclusive church, because if we don't understand that we are actually building our churches today on philosophies that are thousands and thousands of years old, then we don't necessarily represent the actual full universal truth that we are teaching. So because it's Black History Month, of course, that's the reason that all month, all the next 4 weeks, I'm going to pull out different ancient African cultures. But I don't want to leave out some of the ways that these principles have shown up in African American communities in the West, so in the U.S., in the Caribbean, in in the northern part of South America, where people from Africa were brought over and then enslaved. But the African traditions were embedded in them from their growing up, and some of the traditions stayed. But even when the traditions were not preserved, the philosophy, the internal philosophy was so embedded, right? We all know from a scientific, biological standpoint that there are cultural traditions and beliefs and values that actually are genetically passed from generation to generation, whether they are verbally taught or not. And so I also wanted to look at what are some of the ways that some of these principles, while in African American culture, they were not purposely designed to preserve African wisdom, but some of these principles, some of these ideas just translated into behaviors and community standards and cultural ways of being that were required and showed up during times of survival, during times of resistance, during patterns of creativity under constraints. But the constraints did not eliminate some of the things that were simply known or believed or felt. So when I think about Ma'at, I see this bridge from all of this cultural knowledge that shows up as kind of African American in spirituals that were sung, or in the pattern of call and response, preaching and teaching, in some of the testimonies. Some of it just simply represents the spiritual truth that order, divine order, spiritual order exists even when systems, humanly designed systems, are unjust. And one thing that I know I learned, and this is 5,000 years removed from Ma'at, but I learned very young that harmony and unity with spirit is generated internally. Harmony, freedom, that those were internal birthrights, because I was created by a God that created all things for good, from itself, from good for good. And so the idea that I have to go within to create harmony, I have to go within to recognize and claim freedom, because it is a God-given way of being, that it is not approved, denied, or provided by a government, by a leader, by any external source. That goes all the way back to actually at least 3 of the 4 ancient African traditions that I'm going to highlight this month. But in the context of Ma'at, ancient Egyptian philosophy, it's very clear that my relationship with the Creator is a unique and unbreakable connection. And I get to make the choices that keep me in alignment with that. In 21st century New Thought, we might say that law functions regardless of conditions. We might say that it's our consciousness that precedes the circumstances, that our consciousness is either creating circumstances that represent the power and the nature of God, or our consciousness is presenting and preceding circumstances that are not in alignment. So, this idea of order in the midst of chaos is an old and ancient idea. And it is the bridge, I think, from the ancient Kemet, Ma'at, and the current universal principle of law. So, let's see if I can summarize some of this in 5 minutes or less. Ancient Kemet, the idea of Ma'at, which is divine order, was a foundational piece. If we look at the bridge from ancient African or ancient Kemet to now in the African diaspora, Black culture learned to generate order from the inside out. And in New Thought, we just call this being in alignment with spiritual law. Another key thing to think about as we look at this bridge is that when systems are unjust or corrupt or unfair, spiritual law doesn't go anywhere. It is still present and available. And it is simply responding to our consciousness. So if our consciousness is out of alignment with spiritual law, that's what we experience. And those are the kinds of systems we create. But all we have to do is get back into alignment and then change the systems, the policies, the politics that we live within. I'm thinking right now of the phrase that I know I heard growing up from the elders that have been passed down from generation to generation of Black folks in the South, and maybe it spread to others as well. But that phrase of, we're going to make a way out of no way. We're going to make a way out of no way. All that is metaphysics in motion. It may not appear that there is a way, but if I am in alignment with Ma'at, if I am in alignment with divine order, it's going to happen, right? Something has to shift. A way will be made where no way is obvious. Three other things that I remember noting as I was thinking about this. One is harmony exists in the spiritual perfection, but it's not handed to us. We create it by what we practice. Same with order. Order is an inner dimension before it becomes an outer reality. And this reminder for me, oh my goodness, I have to smile because one of the things I love most about New Thought in general, and Science Mind specifically, is it reminds us over and over again, we are the ones who are responsible for the lives we create. And so in Ma'at, the idea that the law doesn't ask about our circumstances. The law is responding to what we believe is true. So in ancient Kemet, if you were to look up Judgment Day in ancient Egyptian practices, after death, there is a tribunal, there is a trial, and your heart is put on a scale with a feather. And if your heart is as light or lighter than the feather, then you are granted access to the eternal life, the afterlife. If your heart is heavier than the feather, meaning you have not lived in alignment with spiritual principle, then you are not granted access to the eternal life of goodness and wholeness. So law doesn't ask about what were the circumstances. Oh, there was COVID and that made it difficult. Oh, you were out of a job for 9 months and then you lost your house and that's why you then stole. Oh, no, law doesn't say what were the circumstances that made you choose whatever you chose. Ancient Egyptian law and our current understanding of universal spiritual law will say this. What are you believing is true about yourself? What are you believing is true about the creator of all of life? What do you believe is true about how to live your life? And so in our inclusive spiritual communities, we want to choose alignment with universal principle over arguing about whatever is up for us in the human experience. And we want to be able to do that with a consistent view of how do we do that when people in our communities come from different cultural backgrounds, maybe speak different languages, represent different gender or gender identity, sexual orientation, different age groups, different neurodiversity and ways of processing mental information. And one of the big ones we don't talk enough about come from different socioeconomic backgrounds or current socioeconomic conditions. All of the ways that we are different from one another cannot be a barrier, or they don't have to be a barrier if we are committed to having inclusive spiritual communities. And this month on Inclusive Church, we get to take a look way back to some ancient African teachings to see how they are aligning, technically, how we are aligning with what has been taught over time. I hope that some of what we talk about this month will be helpful for you in conversations in your own church, in your own spiritual community, that you might be encouraged to share the videos or to have conversations with people to see if they understand and recognize how what we are teaching today reflects what has been taught for centuries in different parts of Africa. My name is Tracy Brown. This is the Inclusive Church. Welcome, and please come back again next Tuesday right here on the New Thought Media Network.
Thanks for watching The Inclusive Church with Tracy Brown. Join us again next week at 12 noon Mountain Time.